Greetings and blessed day to you once again, people of God. It's the Revelator once again, and I just want to thank everyone that has been following the Easter series presentation. But before we enter into the third segment today, before Good Friday, let me just give you a brief reminder, a brief recap of what we covered last time. In the first segment, in part 1, we explained about the Last Supper, in which we explained about the flesh and blood and the bread and wine. And I took you further to segment 2, which was part 2, in which Jesus was betrayed, which was also a dimension where I explained many diversities that combined a lot of issues that regarded Jesus' fate. It was the last hour and power of darkness. And today we want to focus on Jesus' trial. We want to focus on Jesus' trial. We haven't reached the Good Friday, and we are just a day behind now to reach Good Friday. And we want to focus on Jesus' trial. And inside Jesus' trial, we want to focus on the religious and political council, the council which Jesus appeared before. Jesus appeared both councils, the religious and the political, and it is there in the scriptures. Jesus went through this fate in his quest to die for the people before he was crucified. He went through a lot. He was persecuted, he was afflicted, he suffered for the gospel. Now, for us to learn more about Jesus' trial, let's get into scriptures and check in the book of Luke chapter 22 verse 63, and it reads, "And the men that held Jesus mocked him and smote him. And when they had blindfolded him, they struck him on the face and asked him, saying, Prophesy who it is that hit you." I explained earlier in part 2, when Jesus was betrayed, that the disciples had already scattered, and only Peter remained following behind. And later on, Peter also had no choice but to deny Jesus, because these were matters that had already been prophesied by Jesus beforehand, and it was beyond Peter's will to save Jesus, because it was already destined that Jesus must die for the people. And when they had blindfolded him, they struck him on the face, asking him and mocking him, saying, Prophesy who it is that hit you. And many other things blasphemously spake against him. And as soon as it was day, the elders of the people and the chief priests and the scribes came together and led him into the council. The council that Jesus appears before was the religious council, which was the council of scribes and the chief priests. Remember, the scribes and the chief priests, most of them, they were Pharisees and Sadducees, and this also was the same team. This was the same council that had always been against the ministry of Jesus, even before this moment. They are the same that led Jesus into the council of the elders, so that Jesus would be questioned his authority. But whatever Jesus was going to be questioned in the presence of the council, before the elders of the council, it was all meant to entangle him in any word that he would speak. And he was asked, Art thou the Christ? Tell us. And said unto them, If I tell you, you will not believe. And if I also ask you, you will not answer me, nor let me go. Why did Jesus respond like this? He knew that even if he told them the truth, it would not change his fate. He was destined to come and suffer all these things. He also knew that if he defended himself that he was not Christ, he would have failed his mission calling of dying for the people as Christ, the Son of God. Yea, and thereafter shall the Son of Man sit on the right hand of power of God. He further tells them that here and thereafter the Son of Man shall appear from the clouds of heaven, seated on the right hand side of the power of God. And this is what they did not want to hear. This is what they regarded as blasphemy. I hope someone is understanding what I'm saying. Because the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they did not believe in Jesus. Neither did they believe in resurrection. They had certain scriptures that they had believed in, which were written by the prophets of old. But any scripture that regarded the coming of the Messiah in the formation, in the fashion, in the nature in which Jesus came, they did not accept. They had another Messiah that they were looking for, that they expected, who was more than Jesus, who would come not in the way that Jesus came. I suppose it is because Jesus came in a very humble manner and they expected someone that was like a superhero from their own senses. Then said they all, art thou then the Son of God? And he said unto them, yea, you say that I am. And so many times when Jesus was asked this question, are you the Son of God? He would say, you have said it. Or he would say, you are the ones that have mentioned it. Why? Because he did not want to be entangled. He didn't want any of his words to be used against him. And they said, what need we any further witness? For ourselves we have heard it from his own mouth. And the whole multitude of them arose and led him unto Pilate. Unto Pilate, Jesus appears now before the political council. The reason why Jesus is appearing before the rulers of the religious council, the reason why Jesus is appearing before the rulers of the political council is because Jesus was carrying the mandate of the highest calling. And when one is carrying the mandate of the highest calling, he is bound to appear before such councils of politicians. He is bound to clash with the higher council of politicians or with the higher council of religious leaders. And Jesus is led unto Pilate, and they began to accuse him, saying, we found this fellow perverting the nation and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ, a king. They accused him for being what he was. He was indeed Christ and is indeed Christ the king, and he was accused for being who he was. And Pilate, the politician, asked him, saying, art thou the king of the Jews? And he answered him and said, thou sayest. Again, this is the same response that Jesus is giving. He refuses to answer the question as it has been asked, but he quotes what they have said as an answer. This is not allowed in the court of law, but this is the way that Jesus answered their questions, because he knew that now I am responding to political spirits. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and to the people, I find no fault in this man. I want you to understand why Pilate said, I find no fault in this man. I want to take you back at a certain time when Jesus rebukes the devil inside Peter, who was trying to fight that Jesus doesn't die for the people. That wasn't mercy. Anything that was trying to stand on Jesus' way so that he doesn't die for the people was the devil himself. So Pilate is not trying to protect Jesus, but Pilate is trying to go against the will of God so that Jesus dies for the people. This is why Pilate, who is supposed to be against Jesus, at this point of time is finding no fault in Jesus. He was trying to find a way to spare Jesus, but he could not oppose what the scriptures had already prescribed. And Pilate asked him, saying, Art thou the king of Jews? And he answered him and said, Thou sayest. Then Pilate said to the chief priests, to the people, I find no fault in this man. And they were with more fierce and anger, saying, He stirs up people, teaching throughout all Jerusalem, beginning from Galilee to this place. And when Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the men were a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jury, he sent him to Herod. Herod, who is another king, another politician, who himself also was at Jerusalem at that time. Remember Herod, who was also there when Jesus was born. And Herod is a system of rulership, a system of kingship. The same system at once that killed all children after Jesus had been born. So these are not systems that support Jesus. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad, for he was desirous to see him after a long season, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracle done by him. Then he questioned him in many words, just as the politicians would question you in many angles, just to twist and entangle you into saying what you don't want to say. But he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and the scribes stood and vehemently accused him. And Herod, with his men of war, set him at naught and mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. And in the same day, Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were at enmity between themselves. At that very point of time, Pilate and Herod, who were once enemies, became friends, because they were now against Jesus. I just want to show you how great Jesus is, to the level that two territorial spirits, two territorial political spirits that were opposing each other, they joined forces because they now had a common enemy called Jesus. Such is the politics of this world. Whether you call it the ruling or the opposition, they are only opposing each other because it's their internal battle. But when one that is truly anointed comes, they can even combine forces to fight him. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers of the people, said unto them, You have brought this man unto me as one that perverts the people, and behold, I have examined him before you, and have found no fault. And for the second time, Pilate says he has not found a fault in Jesus, because he was still trying to find a way to set Jesus free. It was not Pilate, it was Lucifer, the devil, trying to find a way to set Jesus free, because he knew the meaning of Jesus' death. This can only be Lucifer, who had this level of understanding. The same Lucifer who had earlier been driven out or rebuked from inside Peter, trying to fight the processes of salvation. And Pilate says, In this man touching those things whereof you accuse him, no, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore release him. Meaning that even both Herod and Pilate would not find anything convincing so that Jesus' accusation could hold any weight in the spirit and in the physical. Meaning that Lucifer was fighting by all means so that Jesus could not be sentenced in what would save the majority. And they cried out all at once, Away with this man, and release us Barabbas. Barabbas was also another criminal, a murderer, whom they brought out. But the reason why Pilate is now bringing out Barabbas, a criminal, so that he's trying to find a way so that Jesus, who was not with the crime, could be released, but still it would not work. Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spake again to them, saying, But they cried Crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, Why, what evil has he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore let him go. And they were instant with loud voices requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. Earlier on, Judas, which had betrayed Jesus, when he saw that he was condemned, and repented himself, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver coin to the chief priests and elders, he felt agony inside himself. He regretted, saying, I have sinned, and I have betrayed the innocent blood. The reason why Judas repented after betraying Jesus, like I said earlier on in segment 1, was that Judas was merely activated and anointed to sell out Jesus, to betray Jesus. It was never inside Judas. This is a revelation that I'm giving you. And I believe that Judas Iscariot should be seen in the next kingdom. Because Judas Iscariot betrayal was actually a production for the kingdom of God. He was actually given that soap. He was actually anointed so that he would sell out Jesus, so that the mission of the kingdom would go forward. I explained this in part 1 and 2, and I'm explaining it again so that I correct your mindset. So many times when you hear about Judas Iscariot, you think of the devil himself. Judas Iscariot is the character of one that emphasized, that motivated the mission of Jesus and the plan of salvation to be a fulfillment in the kingdom. Therefore, Judas cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed, and went and hanged himself. He hanged himself because this was the manner of death that he was supposed to die. And the chief priest took the silver pieces of coin and said, It is not lawful for us to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered him, the whole band of soldiers, and they stripped him and put him a scarlet robe. And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of Jews! And they spit upon him, and he took the reed and smote him on the head. Earlier on again, Pilate's wife had a dream which wanted Jesus to be set free. Meaning that there are so many angles when they all tried to set Jesus free, but because this was not the will of God, they could not set him free. Even Peter, who earlier denied Christ, did not deny Christ because he wanted to deny Christ. Peter was very brave. As the disciples scattered, he remained, but he denied Christ because Jesus was supposed to die. I've already explained about Judas. It was not inside Judas, but it was an activation. It was a mission that Judas was supposed to fulfill. Child of God, we are about to enter Good Friday, and Jesus has been released to the political and religious council. He has been denied and rejected by his own people. He has been stripped. He has been spat on. He has been persecuted. He has been afflicted. He has been beaten. He has been scourged almost 40 times. And Jesus is about to go and face his destiny, the cause of why he was born into this world. Until next time, when we meet on Good Friday, have a great blessed day.